All right, welcome to Defer Bits with me, with Briggs. And today is the dark office edition, working the night shift uh, today due to the pandemic. You know, we'll have to adjust. So today I want to talk about working with WAL files or write-ahead logs in SQLite databases. And this came clearly into my attention when Yogesh made a comment, right? And here's the tweet that I retweeted from him. Well, he's saying that, when you're doing your parsers, don't only pull out the database, don't leave the write-ahead logs behind, right? And that's something that I conceptually knew, but I needed to make sure that my parsers took that into account, which I'm doing now, thanks to Yogesh reminder. And the purpose of the video today is to show you how you can do that within iLEAPP and ALEAPP when you're doing your iOS and Android parsing and creating your own artifacts. I want to make before I make the point, let me give you a quick explanation of WAL files and what's up with that. So if you look at the documentation for write-ahead logs in the SQLite website, it tells you that SQLite files, when they use WAL files, what you will find is, and here's kind of highlighted here, the main database file with the name X. So it could be called, let's say, chat database.sqlite, or chat database with no extension, or chat database.db. I mean, sometimes they have extensions, sometimes they don't have extensions. It might be or might not be. Now, however it's called, with or without extension, if write-ahead login is used, there'll be an additional file that will be called the same as the database with the addition of -wal at the end. Okay? And it has to be that way. It can't have a different name here on the front, because then they won't be able to kind of work together. So in order to work together, they gotta be called the same, and then the WAL file will end with -WAL. All right, so in our example, let's say again it's called chat messages.db. The partner file will be called chat messages.db-WAL wall. All right, so what are write-ahead logs? Quick explanation of that is, well, different things that happen on the database, they're reading ahead in this file before they are committed to the database, right? And sometimes it could include files that are being put into the database. And as you're working with your devices, you will see the data presented to you from the database, but it's not really from the database. It's working together with the write-ahead log. At some point, for different factors, the database eventually will take the data from the WAL file and put it inside the database. That's called committing. It will commit that data by certain triggers. Depends on how it was coded. I mean, it could be, I don't know, let's say for example, it could be the amount of data or the timing of the data, different reasons of why that will be committed. And I'm not gonna go into details. I will need to actually read a little bit more to give you the precise answer, but you get the gist, right? This is forensically important because if you only extract the database, you will lose what's in that WAL file, right? And when I say lose into that WAL file, what I mean by that is when you open the database, it will look for the partner WAL file if it's available. And it will do whatever processes to commit the data so you can see it. And we want to do that. That will give you the most recent state of that database. Okay? This is an important note. The most recent state. If you extract the database, if you extract the WAL file, and you open it up to do your queries, again, the most recent state. This, you need to, as part of your forensic examination, if this database is important, make sure you take that WAL file, have obviously an extra copy of it, and process it with a forensic tool that's designed to work with this write-ahead logs. Okay? Why is this? The write-ahead logs might contain data that's leaving the database, that's deleted, all right? And by opening the database and combining committing those contents, a deletion is not gonna commit in that sense, right? It's going away. So, I have plenty of cases where the data that I needed is within the WAL file, right? And I'm gonna show you quickly here one of the artifacts that I have for ALEAPP and iLEAPP, and it's called, maybe you can see here at the bottom here, strings, SQLite WAL, and SQLite journal. We'll talk about that another day, but at least WAL file, which is what matters today. This artifact will go and pull all the WAL files from your extractions, and then it will show the contents, whatever strings are inside of them, so you can see them, right? And this is an example of some of the contents that the WAL files might have, and we'll be working with this WAL file precisely in a second. And I'm showing you this because, and I commented on this in the past tweet and past blog, you might have the important data within the WAL file. You need to process that WAL file also in addition separately if it's important to your case. Okay, so extract your database, extract your WAL file, do your queries. Perfect, that's what we want to do. In addition, also have the WAL file, preserve it, as we always do with our evidence, and process it separately with a forensic tool. And if you want to triage that, you can use this artifact that I showed you and look for strings that might be of relevance to your case. Some of these WAL files might contain chats, might contain URLs, might contain all sorts of different things. Now, how do we do this? So the example we're gonna use for today is in Android, and there is a database called Google Settings.db. Okay, and Google Settings.db also uses WAL files. What data is inside of this? Well, I mean, it has different data depending on the Android version, different partner settings that it uses. One that's interesting is the use location for services. One means it's enabled, so location services is being used on that phone, which is a pretty interesting or important artifact to know. Is location services in use? Geolocation data, was it enabled at the time when you image your device, right? It tells you how the client ID is an Android Samsung and some other information. Okay? Now, this report was done by extracting both the database, the WAL file, and opening them up together as it should be. Okay? So how does that look within the scripting, right? Your artifact. Well, the first thing, and again, this part you will need to watch the previous videos of the version to have an understanding of how ALEAPP and iLEAPP looks for stuff, right? So watch those if you have, if you're not really not following at this point, and then you'll be able to catch up. So, as discussed previously, here's your to search dictionary, and this is the parameters that are going to be used to do the search for the data, right? And sometimes, me being not as careful as I should be, I do my search for the directory that's pertinent and the database, and I leave it at that. This asterisk, I do not put it there. What does that mean? That means that when the search is executed, it will only pull what's responsive, which is this file here. The rest of the files that I need, like the WAL files that end in -WL, will not be responsive if you don't put that asterisk. And this asterisk, as you know, means it's a wildcard. So this search will pull every file that ends as Google Settings.db and whatever else is behind it, as long as it has this as part of the search pattern. Okay, when you do that, ALEAPP and iLEAPP will pull that out and put it in the proper temporary directory for processing and for additional analysis by the examiner if needed. So let me show you how that looks as well. Right, so here I am. This is the report from the tool after it runs. The temp folder and all the data was extracted. You go to the proper path, and you'll see here the database, and you'll see here the WAL file, right? And if you're asking or maybe wondering, what are these other two files here? Well, these are products of another artifact that I made called strings for journal files, which is something I might make a video in the future on what does that mean. But For our purposes, again, we're interested in the fact that here is your database and here's the partnering WAL file. Okay, so it's there. So we extracted it, put it there, and now our artifact needs to access it. And how do you do it? Again, this is making reference to the past video. So what you need to do is, as you might remember, this argument files found will be a list of all the things that were responsive to the search. If it's one file, you only found just one file with this ending and that's it. There was no WAL files, just Google settings.db and that's it. Then your list, your files found list, will only have one entry. In our case, since our search here provided Google settings.db and Google settings.db-wal, your list will have, two entries. Okay, so since we have those two entries, we need to iterate through it. So we're gonna go and get for the first file found, right? The first path for that list. We're gonna kind of clean it up, make it a string, make sure it's a string, and then we're gonna check here in line 11 if it ends in Google settings.db, not with the WAL, just the .db, which is what we need to open up do our queries, right? If it finds it, great, we break out of the loop and we just execute our query. And since both files were already exported and they're in the same directory, when you open the database and do your query, it will immediately also open the WAL file, commit what it needs to commit, and you get the latest results from that database. Okay, but see how easy that is? Let's imagine that the first file here in our list of files found, the first path is for the WAL file. Well, it will check and say, okay, is it ending with Google settings.db? Nope, because it has -wal at the end of it. Okay, then since it wasn't, it's not responsive to that, like this condition is not met, it will go to the top and then get the next one. Does the next entry in our list ends with this? Yes, perfect, and then it executes. And we do a report as we usually done. All right. So again, just to summarize, make sure, and not only in iLEAPP and iLEAPP, when you're doing your analysis and you want to run queries on a database, extract your database and make sure you extract your WAL files. They have to go together. Secondly, and most importantly, if it's really important to your case, make sure you analyze that WAL file separately, have a copy of it, and analyze it with a forensic tool in order to get data that might be deleted, that's being kind of taken out of the database, or new data that's there. And you can compare the results. Compare results with the database as processed or as queried with both files, and then look at the WAL file by itself through a forensic tool. I cannot stress that enough. The results might be different. Super important, even more so for deleted things, okay? And if you want to triage quickly some of those WAL files and also journal files, ALEAPP already provides an artifact for that, and ALEAPP and iLEAPP for both, that I showed you, which is the SQLite strings journaling, SQLite journaling strings, okay? And like I showed you here, we can go here to, I should have a better, here it is. You can go here and you can look at all those WAL files and you can just open them and see what's in them. Right, this one is empty, but we have one that was full that I showed you here. So like this one, right? It has some data there. Okay? Really easy. Just, let's count them. Just 4 lines of code to iterate through your list to make sure that you get the file that you want to do your query on. And 1 extra line for your search. Just make sure that you add your asterisk so that your list has all the files that you need. And that's it. Hopefully this helps and gives you some food for thought for future cases. Again, my thanks to Yogesh. He's awesome. Bring that to the forefront. And let's make sure we can apply it. If any questions, comments, put them in the video. Hit me on Twitter, Alexis Brignoni. That's my handle, the @ for Twitter. Or my blog, abrignoni.com. Thanks so much. Appreciate you watching.